Hi, so your recapped here. Today, we're going to talk about a movie called Ondine in the drama, fantasy, and romance genres. Spoiler alert is on, watch out, and take care. You won't believe how much your support means. Thank you so much for your support. The story is about a fisherman named Syracuse. One day, while fishing, he pulled up his net and found a woman's body in it. The fisherman realized the woman was still alive. He took her out of the net and performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to help her. When the woman regained consciousness, she couldn't believe she was alive. Syracuse warmed her up with a blanket and insisted that she see a specialist after such an incident, but the woman refused to go to the hospital. As soon as a boat passed by them, the woman hid in fear of being seen. The fisherman asked her name, but she said she didn't know it. Syracuse thought she must have hit her head and lost her memory. He introduced himself, saying people called him Circus, meaning clown. He then took the woman to his late mother's house, which had been empty for years, and gave her some food. After that, Syracuse went to his ex-wife's house to take his daughter to the hospital for her dialysis appointment. He told his daughter that something strange had recently happened to him. During the dialysis session, Annie asked her father to tell her a story. Syracuse narrated his fishing experience from earlier that day as a tale. Annie became curious about the woman found in the net and asked questions. She speculated that the woman might be a mermaid. The fisherman got his daughter an electric wheelchair to make it easier for her to move around. When he brought her back home, his ex-wife told him that Annie needed a kidney transplant, but a suitable donor had not yet been found. The next day, Syracuse visited the mysterious woman, and she asked him to take her fishing with him. Despite his belief that having a woman on board during fishing brought bad luck, he allowed her to join him. During the fishing trip, Syracuse asked the woman again if she remembered her name. She said, "You can call me Ondine," which means a woman who came from the sea. Ondine began singing a beautiful song in an unknown language. When Syracuse pulled up his fishing cage, he found several crabs inside. Now, the fisherman believed that Ondine brought him good luck. He went to town to sell his valuable catch, but Ondine didn't accompany him because she didn't want anyone else to see her. Syracuse bought a set of clothes for the woman and noticed that she had stolen some underwear. He then went to his daughter's school and completed the story he had started in the hospital. He mentioned how the woman sang in an unknown language and her singing made the fisherman catch crabs. Annie confidently said the woman was a selkie. Selkies are mythical creatures that can shift between human and seal forms. When they come ashore, they shed their seal skin and take on a human appearance. Annie explained that the song the woman sang was meant to communicate with other sea creatures. Sir, he said it was just a story, but his daughter firmly believed it was real. Annie decided to follow her father secretly. Syracuse went to Ondine, gave her the new clothes, and asked how long she planned to stay. Ondine replied, "That depends on you," and Syracuse asked her to stay forever. Meanwhile, Annie secretly observed them. Annie decided to research selkies. Syracuse visited the church to confess his past mistakes. He also mentioned stealing and talked about Ondine to the priest. The priest asked where he was keeping her, but Syracuse didn't answer. The priest told him to keep him updated on anything new. Ondine tried on the stolen underwear. She swam a little and then encountered Annie. Annie told Ondine, "I know you're a selkie," and asked if she had magical powers. Annie believed the woman could cure her. She pointed out other signs of selkies in Ondine. Ondine denied the claims, but Annie said she had done all her research and was sure. Annie explained that selkies could live on land for 7 years. During this time, they bury their sealskin and cry 7 tears. They must also fall in love with a human during this period. While saying goodbye, Annie touched Ondine's face and said, "You just shed one of your 7 tears." Syracuse searched for books about selkies, but realized his daughter had already borrowed all of them from the library. The fisherman went back to Ondine and suggested they go fishing again. Ondine sang once more and Syracuse's net was filled with trout. This catch was almost unbelievable. The fisherman's patrol boards the Syracuse boat to investigate, and they're amazed at how he managed to catch these fish. While looking for his fishing nets, they notice the presence of Ondine, who had been hiding. Syracuse goes to the city with Ondine and we see everyone staring at her. It was a small town and news traveled fast. She was beautiful, and when she went shopping for clothes, everyone gathered to see her. Annie goes to Ondine and tells her that she doesn't know how to swim. Ondine decides to teach her, but while teaching her, she spots something in the water. She quickly sends Annie out of the water and pulls something from it. Annie asks if she found her clothes. Ondine confirms and says they must bury it so she can stay on land for 7 years. She asks the little girl to keep this secret between them. Annie tells her father that, based on what she learned, Ondine can stay with them for 7 years unless her husband comes for her. She says selkies can fulfill wishes. Meanwhile, a suspicious man is seen in crowd, seemingly looking for someone. Annie tests Ondine by jumping into the water, and when Ondine jumps in to save her, Annie is sure she is a selkie. Syracuse and Ondine go home. Ondine asks about the fisherman's past, and he says, "I used to be an alcoholic and did a lot of foolish things. One day I came home and found my daughter unconscious, and her mother was drunk and passed out. After that, I decided to get clean so I could be there for Annie. Now, his wife had kicked him out, and the government wouldn't grant him custody of Annie. They get closer, kiss, and share special moments. The next day, Syracuse goes to church again and confesses to the priest that he slept with Ondine. He says she brings him good luck and he's becoming hopeful, but he's afraid things might end badly. A suspicious man is seen waiting outside the church, asking about the woman Syracuse has caught. But Syracuse doesn't respond. Ondine is asleep when she hears a sound and wakes up. She realizes the suspicious man is after her. She quickly runs away. Meanwhile, Syracuse drops his daughter off after her dialysis session. He realizes the door is locked and the keys are with his ex-wife, who's at a bar enjoying herself. Syracuse has no choice but to leave his daughter at the bar with her mother. When he arrives at his mother's house, he finds it a mess. He worries about Ondine and goes looking for her. He eventually finds her and asks what happened. The woman says her husband, just as Annie had told him, came after her to take her back. The fisherman says, "You can wish for anything." Ondine replies, "My wish is for Annie to be well and stay with me forever." Meanwhile, Annie's mother, very drunk, is driving and causes a bad crash with another car. We see the car she crashed into belongs to the suspicious man. Syracuse, worried, takes Annie to the hospital. Fortunately, Annie was wearing a seatbelt and wasn't badly hurt, and now there's a kidney donor match for her. Meanwhile, Ondine talks to the suspicious men at the hospital, and we learn they know each other and were involved in something illegal. Syracuse goes to the funeral of Alex, his ex-wife's lover. His ex-wife insists they have a drink together in honor of the deceased. Syracuse reluctantly agrees. His ex-wife asks him to take care of Annie because she couldn't provide for her. But she insists that first, he get rid of her sea creature Ondine because she brought him bad luck. Syracuse drinks an entire bottle and heads towards the boat. He takes Ondine to a distant spot and, while saying he'll bring another bottle from the ship, leaves her alone. The fisherman believes that the creature should be with her kind, not humans. Ondine tries to stop him, but the fisherman leaves without a chance for her to stop him. Syracuse wakes up on a tree. His father comes to help and talks to him. Syracuse goes to pick up Annie from the hospital and takes her home. Annie asks about Ondine. Syracuse says her husband came and took her. Annie believes she'll return because there's something here that belongs to her. While Annie is watching TV, Syracuse hears a song Ondine used to sing while fishing, and he realizes it's a real song. So Ondine was a real person, not a selkie. Syracuse goes looking for Ondine, and when he finds her, he asks her to tell him the truth. The woman says she was with a drug smuggler from Romania. They had a shipment, and when they were caught by the Irish Coast Guard, the man was forced to carry the drugs. As a result, she threw herself into the water. She was a good swimmer, but couldn't handle the strong waves and drowned until the fisherman saved her. The smuggler was the same suspicious man who'd been looking for her. The woman finally tells him her real name, Joanna. Syracuse and Joanna go home, but they find the jerk there. The man threatens Joanna that if she doesn't give him what he wants, his partner will shoot Syracuse and Annie and kill them. To protect their lives, Joanna shows him where she buried the drugs, but realizes Annie had moved them because she didn't want Joanna to leave. Joanna promises Annie that if she tells her where she hid the drugs, she'll never leave her. Annie had taken what Joanna buried and hid it in the trap cage on the boat. They all reach the boat, and as the jerk is pulling up the rope, Joanna uses it to throw both the criminals into the sea. The man, who couldn't swim, drowns in the water along with his partner. The police arrive, and after pulling the bodies of the two men from the water, they arrest Joanna. Syracuse goes to the church and confesses that next week, Joanna's trial will be held. The woman wasn't a citizen, but if she married, she could be acquitted and set free. In the final scene, we see Syracuse and Joanna getting married, and they're sailing towards the ceremony.